The following day, I continued pandering to my laziness and was becoming complacent with my surroundings. I've always been a homebody. Even though I'd been on my own for 2 weeks, I was enjoying myself. It seemed like only a couple of days as the time was flying by. That morning, while pouring myself a big bowl of cornflakes, covered with bananas, and half a cup of sugar, with toast, I saw a brochure on the kitchen counter about the sale of tank top t-shirts at the mall. Pictures of it flooded my mind as I ate my breakfast. I hadn't been to the mall in ages. I can't even remember the last time I went when I was back on Earth. So, after breakfast, when I could get up from the table and move again, I took a trip to the Planet Mall. The Planet was the smallest planet in the system. However, it housed the largest shopping center in all of Sierra. Of course, we called it Mall. Why call it anything else, right? There were miles of shops, restaurants, gardens, theaters, and teenagers. It didn't take long to figure out teenagers acted the same way at the mall, no matter what place or era they lived in. The mall attracted every single teenager from the region like the Pied Piper of Hamelin attracted rats. They were running, bumping into everything, and everyone, who got in their way. They'd sit in groups and look at you as you passed by, like you were something to eat, at least something to talk about. Mall not only had the largest shopping center in Sierra, it also had a substantial open-air market that took place daily from Sunday through Thursday, right outside the north entrance. Millions of citizens came and set up shop, selling different handmade articles, which was a popular practice throughout Sierra. At any one time, there could be over 1 million people shopping between the mall and the market. Money wasn't a requirement because everything one needed was free based on a partial co-op system. The co-op system did not apply to immortals. They could do anything they chose to do, or obtain anything they wanted to without the help of others. So, when explaining the co-op, I'm only referring to mortals who live and thrive within the confines of a society like Sierra, and what it has to offer. In the co-op, the farmer grew vegetables. He gave his vegetables to the stores. The stores offered their vegetables to the factory owner, who handed over the farm machinery to the farmer. To benefit from the co-op, a citizen worked 3 days a week. Some jobs demanded different schedules, such as the farmer could not work 3 days per week and neglect his crops the other 4, but it all averaged out. Even though money wasn't a necessity, it was used for purchasing items such as homemade crafts sold at the open-air markets, artwork, and anything else not covered by the co-op. The way a person earned such money might include making crafts and peddling them, which was the favorite means to do so. One could work an extra day or 2 throughout the week. Even though it was old-fashioned, Sierra offered many ways to generate money should one want to or desire it. Particularly when a teenager was still in school, whatever job or craft they took on, always paid. So, there was a process by which one could move beyond the co-op type purchasing. The currency used throughout Sierra was the shekel, period. Each coin was engraved with holiness unto the Lord. So, whatever you did beyond the co-op, you got paid in shekels. Now, the shekel was a brilliant coin made of gold or silver. A group called the Short Standers made all the coins used throughout Sierra. I strolled around the mall for 4 hours and acquired 6 tank top t-shirts. When I finished shopping, I ate lunch, Strimboli with a root beer. It took me an hour to eat it. Clearly, my eyes were bigger than my stomach. Now and then, I got a slight taste of banana, but it was free. I returned home later in the afternoon. That evening, while sitting around the fire, I thought while here in Sierra, while going from place to place, adventure to adventure, about how I became more observant. My brain was so full of details, more than I usually carry around. I remembered things I would have forgotten in a matter of minutes before. Now, they were unnaturally stored in my brain. I found it necessary to spend most of my evenings writing. This night was no different. I was up past midnight, writing. The following day, Jack came by early, 6 a.m. Doesn't anyone wait until the afternoon to come over? Perhaps that was the best time to catch me. When he came by, I was still in bed, and grouchy. I don't know why, but it seemed familiar, natural. Jack had just come back from the annual Watcher meeting. Each year, The watchers from the 42 regions get together for a 10-day conference. There are over 700 watchers who attend the meetings each year. This year they held the conference on the planet Dune, in the region called Abigail. The planet was a complete desert, hence the name Dune. Each of the 42 regions selected a particular planet in their territory to build a large complex for those conferences. Every complex included multiple facilities designed and built for housing representatives from all the other areas who will attend the conference. Every entity built their own housing facility in each of the other regions. These council conference centers were the only structures on one particular planet in each region. No other structures were allowed. In addition, the complexes were constructed in the same fashion as immortal cities. Sierra's facility, named Cartagena, sat on a floating platform in the middle of the Azure Sea on the uninhabited planet, Sandberg. The planet had a 37-hour day, and like most of the conference facilities, existed on a planet with various length days. The floating platform was 100 miles square and constructed of dark gray granite with gold and various colored jade inlaid designs. It was a good mix of water and structure. The conference dome, in the center of the platform, was 20,000 square feet and made of a single crystal with emerald and blue sapphire accents. When the light hit it, it sparkled with every color one could imagine, and other colors hard to pronounce, beyond imagination. The floor was crafted of 12-foot squares of dark blue sodalite, looking as if it was a single piece. A round, intricately carved teak stage was constructed in the middle of the hall, with a large round podium in the center. The stage was surrounded by dozens of conference desks made of single pieces of carved walnut. Natural rattan chairs and couches accompanied those desks, all with comfortable pillows on which to sit. Outside each entryway stood fountains made of single yellow diamonds, set around the dome marking every 45 degrees on the compass. Set atop the dome was a single blue sapphire shaped like an eagle with 4 heads. Each head pointed at 4 different yellow fountains, which faced on the compass directly north, south, east, and west. Every eagle head on the blue sapphire shot a stream of water in a big arch down to the yellow fountain below. All the doorways had colored lights inset into its crystal frame, just bright enough to blend colors with one another. When the other regions built their accommodations on Sandburg, they were required to follow the same design. If Sierra were to build a structure in another region, they were required to follow that region's design. Every region created a unique design. Throughout the 10 days of the conference, each leader got up to report on the success of their particular region. The conference kept the watchers in contact with one another. I remembered as soon as Jack told me, but I did not remember ever going to one. Jack represented Sierra this year. I asked, how was it? Informational, like usual. Were there any new or exciting developments? Not really. Every region was operating smoothly. Diane held the conference this year, and she acted her usual energetic crazy self. Diane Beale, huh? She was a girl I knew back on Earth. I knew her in the 7th grade. We lost contact until she showed up as one of the 42. I was excited she got involved. Besides, she ran one of the best regions of the 42. Jack said, the conference was another success, being both fun and beneficial. Also, many people asked for you. I didn't say much, but each hoped to see you next year. Then, he looked at me and said, actually, I came over to ask if you recall going to the country fair. He assumed I'd remember. Unfortunately, I didn't. No, I don't. He called for transport, and we were off to the planet Cedar. Jack explained, I don't know if you remember any of this, but since the development of the mDNA seeds, Cedar needed to establish a way to choose the best livestock for meat production. The best approach was to single out high-quality animals, without going to every ranch on the planet. So, we invented an annual livestock fair, like the ones they used to have back on Earth. The fair is where the best cattle, pigs, chickens, and other livestock are judged and singled out for produce, seeding. Only the best or first-place livestock receive the mDNA seeds. It has taken on the elements of a country fair, providing food, entertainment, a rodeo, and assorted competitions, and it will last for the next 2 weeks. Are you expecting to attend the fair for the next 2 weeks? No, only the first week. The 2 weeks actually make up 2 different occasions. The first week is the livestock fair and takes place on Cedar only. The second week is the water festival, which also takes place in several other locations around Sierra, including Cedar. The Cedar Fairground was built big enough to hold over 2 million people at one time. Oddly, the fairgrounds had a large dry creek bed running through it from north to south with a dozen walking bridges spread over it. I mentioned it to Jack, but he muffled something, and I didn't say any more. I could tell Syrians love their festivals. The livestock fair was a wonderful, exciting event, particularly the homemade pies. I ate blueberry pie until my lips turned blue, and barbecue ribs until I oinked like a pig. I won a cowboy hat while playing a ring toss. There was no end to it. We attended 2 rodeos, a horse riding competition, tractor pulls, and more. The humans from Prairie won most of the riding events, who from a young age became expert riders. I inquired, but my friend from Prairie, Dave, didn't come to the festival. Country singers were singing everywhere, each one more talented than the last, or the same. I couldn't tell. In the evening, all the campers built campfires to sit around while visiting with their neighbors and new friends. Jack brought 2 sleeping bags and tents. We found a spot and set up camp. We found coffee for the morning, pillows on which to lay our heads, and cowboy boots for no particular reason. I belong here, and I want to stay here. I painfully wanted this to be my home, my world. All my kids and their kids came by. Each brought their own camping gear. I was excited they came. I took them all to the best place to buy cowboy boots at the fair. In the evening, we sat around the campfire talking together, roasting hot dogs and marshmallows. However, I ate too many of them. I'm sure I still have a sweet tooth. I was also happy that I would never get fat again. I convinced myself that everything was good for me. We spent the following day looking at all the livestock. It was surprising to see that young children raised many of the winners. I was sure many reluctant parents put some effort in the somewhere. We must have walked 100 miles. The last evening of the first week, the Rider Association held horse races. We sat late into the night rooting for our favorite picks. I found it interesting that Sophie always picked the winner. The kids left for home once the races finished. Jack had some business in commerce and left when the kids did, but I spent the night and returned home the next morning after a strong cup of coffee. I spent the next 2 days at home alone. I was expecting Jack to come by so we could return to the fair for the second week. I was anxious to go to the water festival, although it was a nice couple lazy days. After all the activity at the livestock fair, I again appreciated the solitude. One afternoon, I strolled down to the garden to talk with the gardener. He acted annoyed with me. I asked him questions while offering to water the plants, but I perceived he was still resentful because I made him replace all the roses. Companions often digress to mechanical thinking. Gardening is my job, he said while smiling and hiding behind a modest tinge of aggravation. He let me know I should leave him to his duties. That evening was interesting. I ventured down to the end of the bay where it opened to the ocean, wondering whether the young man might come running by again. Since he did not, I determined to try it myself. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Off I ran, and down I sank into the water. Well, that didn't work out. Thankfully, I didn't take off into the air either, so I swam for a while. When I got out of the water, I watched a 50-foot sailboat come through the entrance in the jetty. Its mast was blue, green and yellow, outlined with white, and in full sail driven by the wind slipping across the water with little effort. The local pod of dolphins chased it through the water, jumping out in high leaps and plunging back in. The boat moored at a dock across the bay. It was tranquil to watch. The pod of dolphins left following the boat and swam over to me. I slapped my hands, and they darted out into deeper water. As I walked along the beach, I discovered a treasure trove of colorful shells that I didn't notice before. They were piling up at the edge of the water. So, I went beach combing, even though walking in the sand still sucked. That night I experienced the most powerful dream I've ever had. I was on a different beach than the one at the house. Narrow columns were reaching up out of the sand and into the surf, hundreds of them. They stood 10 to 15 feet apart, and 12 to 20 feet tall. Each one looked like stacked round blocks piled on top of one another, appearing to be sandstone, and measured 7 to 12 feet in circumference at the base. The ocean was a glassy orange-red from the setting sun and eerily still except for slight ripples dripping on the shore. The temperature was at least 85 degrees and sultry. I was sitting on a fallen column near the back of the beach, near a patch of tall seagrass. Everything standing out of the water had an orange to a golden hue, notably the columns. As I sat there, a young thin man came walking in my direction from the right, from down the beach. Then, I saw to the left, a furious-looking man-beast. He was a giant, at least 3 times the size of the young man. The beast saw the young man, and then charged him, striking him until he fell to the ground. He could not get up, nor did the beast let up, and I concluded he was dead. I wanted to help but could not because I couldn't move from the column and could only observe the brutality. After the beast finished beating the young man, he returned where he came from. A couple moments later, the young man stood up and walked in the beast's direction again. I could not accept what I was seeing. The beast turned to assault him again, beating him into the sand. It was twice as bad as before. Once again, the beast returned to his place on the beach. The young man stood up again. The beating took place several times. I felt distressed for him, but he kept getting up and walking. I yelled at him to stay down, but to my ineffective calls, he got back up each time. Every time the beast beat up the young man, the beast appeared to lose strength as he seemed weaker after each ambush. Finally, the young man stood, but the beast had no more strength. The thin man conquered the beast with absolute authority. To my astonishment, he picked up the beast, lifted him over his head, and then walked down to the water to toss him in. The beast never came out of the water. As I watched, the young man came my way. He stopped 20 feet before me, staring right at me. I asked, "How did you do that?" "I wanted to live." Then he looked at me as he exclaimed in a loud authoritative voice, "Live." He shouted again, "Never give up." Then, he walked away. I woke up sweating. I laid there trying to figure it out, but I didn't have a clue what it meant. The next day, Jack finished his business in commerce and came by, this time in the afternoon. I discussed my dream with him. He said maybe I will face challenges I needed to overcome. You know, the battle sounds like every tough spiritual battle you might face back in your day. It's always a struggle to overcome anything standing between you and your God, but who knows? He said it like he knew something I didn't. I thought about Keith. When Keith died, I got mad at God. When I needed him most, I turned away. If I should face my grief again, I would never act as I did then. I wasn't sure why I thought about Keith. Perhaps that was a battle I was having. Eventually, I let it go. Jack asked if I still wanted to go to the water festival, the rest of the second week of the festivities. Yes, I have been waiting for you so we can go. You will find this week different, and I would like to go somewhere besides Cedar. All right. Can I wear my cowboy hat? His response said it all, silence. We took transportation to the northern hemisphere of commerce to a place called Glasbury Harbour, on the Swansea Bay. Swansea Bay was next to the tri-national capital city of Carmarthenshire, on the southern tip of the Northern Light Isles of the Great Northern Ocean. Carmarthenshire and the harbour were shared by 3 different countries, the Irish, the Scottish, and the Welsh, making up the countries of Carlingford, Berwick, and Conwy respectively. Each nation's land came to a point right at Carmarthenshire, like slices of pizza. So, depending on which direction you left the city, you might end up in one of 3 different countries. The 3 groups settled in the Northern Light Isles in the beginning and never left. In a proclamation of unity, the 3 countries designated Carmarthenshire as the capital of all 3 nations. Well, it was the best natural harbour, and they didn't want to quarrel over it, so they shared it. The population of the 3 countries combined, by the year M206, was just over 7 million. Within the Irish people was one of the more exotic peoples called the Shortstanders. They were a contingent of 20,000 Irish folks who lived in the small borough of Galway. The borough was made up of small hills and glens spread out in central Carlingford. There wasn't a man in the borough over 4 foot 6 inches tall. I don't know how they did it, but the people fell in love and married, based on that one criterion. I believe the founders read The Hobbit as they built their houses right into the side of the many hills in the area, although no one called them hobbits. The ability to build houses in that way was why they preferred the area. Shortstanders were a close-knit group of people and were big on the Sabbath, as not one of them worked on Friday because they spent that day preparing food for the Sabbath, beginning Friday evening. They were well known for their potlucks, and they set aside every Sabbath for them. Potlucks took place in every glen and valley throughout all of Carlingford. They invited anyone who wished to attend. The only condition was that one showed up the day before and did not leave until Saturday evening, when the Sabbath ended. The Shortstanders proved to be one of the most hospitable people found anywhere, although their beds were very short and uncomfortable for an average-size man. Most of the Shortstanders worked as expert artisans. A moon, called the Gold Moon, orbited Academy and contained massive gold and silver deposits. Emerald mines on Serengeti produced emeralds the size of an elephant, and a desolate planet, called Limerick, contained great deposits of copper, zinc, tin, and other materials required to make both brass and bronze. Shortstanders were experts at crafting all the natural elements into masterful works of art, coins, and components for use throughout Sierra. For example, they produced many parts of the machinery for many of the factories on the Planet Factory. They made items for appliances, lighting, and anything needing metalwork to operate. The Shortstanders crafted many of the items in my observatory. My telescope was designed and built by Anry Cullen, Shortstander. He engraved his name on a small tag at the base of the eyepiece. I thought it was odd that I could read them easily, but I couldn't see through the eyepiece itself. Who knows why they worked with emeralds, perhaps because the gems were green. Honestly, I don't know and didn't remember asking, although the gems made attractive dinner settings. Carlingford considered the Shortstanders a national treasure, as did the whole of the Northern Isles. The Northern Isles were well known for their aurora borealis. Many a night, the whole of 3 countries light up as the polar lights ran back and forth through the atmosphere. People from all around Sierra came to see them. Glasbury Harbour was the largest harbour in all of Sierra, accommodating over 10,000 fishing vessels. The harbour could hold over 1 million people at one time, which made it an ideal spot for the water festival. The festival lasted for a week. Most of commerce attended the water festival in one location or another during the second week. I admired the view from the harbour out into the Great Northern Ocean. The ocean produced one of the biggest salmon runs anywhere. More than 1 trillion fish migrated just outside the bay on their way to all different parts of commerce. Also, the area provided a bounty of king crab and halibut. The bay supported the biggest king crab found anywhere. The fishing industry supported all 3 countries. Many a seafaring man lived in Carmarthenshire. The fishing fleet harvested over 1 billion fish each year, 10% of the annual run. Salmon was a Syrian staple. Since I arrived, I have eaten it frequently, although I liked halibut more. After we landed, Jack said he enjoyed coming to Carmarthenshire for the second week of the annual festival, and how this particular festival included over half of Carmarthenshire's fishing fleet. A contingent of the fishermen annually ventured out in the middle of the Northern Ocean in mid-July to gather pods of water that float up from the ocean floor. He explained how the water within the pods had an incredible healing capacity. He asked, "Have you ever heard of the Pool of Bethesda?" "Yes, I have." As you probably know, Bethesda was a pool by the sheep market in Jerusalem. Often, an angel stirred the water in the pool. The first person to get in the water was healed of whatever ailment afflicted them. It's the same water in the Pool of Bethesda, and the same water flowing from the throne room of Christ on earth. This festival takes place in different local variations all over Sierra. All have the same purpose: the water. Did you notice the dry creek bed that ran through the fairgrounds on Cedar? Yes, I did. I mentioned how odd it was. Right. Well, 1 mile north of the fairgrounds is a plateau that rises 2,000 feet out of the forest. The plateau is 5 miles in circumference and is hollow in the center, which creates a deep lake. On the second to the last day of the festival, thick clouds form above that lake, and it rains like it's nobody's business. The next morning it overflows and creates a large waterfall, filling the creek with life-giving water. Everyone gathers on the banks and collects the water on the last day before they go home. The water, collected from all the different locations in Sierra, including Carmarthenshire, sustains mortals, keeping them healthy and young throughout the entire universe, God's kingdom. Jack, isn't God amazing? Yes, he is. Well, in another 2 days a chosen angel will go down to the bottom of the Northern Ocean. The angel will draw the life-giving water from an undersea river and fill the pods. I knew as much and remembered most everything once introduced. Trying to be annoying more than anything else, I asked, how does he do that? I don't know how he does it, Jeff. Let me finish. All right. I apologize. Go ahead. Well, thanks. The angel lets the pods float to the surface. The fishing boats come out from Swansea Bay, drop their nets, and scoop them up. 2 days later, the last day of the festival, the fishing boats deliver the water back here to the harbor and share with anyone who wants it, or needs it. Again, with one drink of the water, anything wrong with you would become healed, and more importantly, it keeps everyone looking young. It was another reason to have another Syrian festival. During the week-long festival in Carmarthenshire, various ethnic groups played music. The Irish, with Irish dancers, performed in one corner, the Welsh in another corner, and the Scots in their kilts with their bagpipes in another. All the fairgoers, including Jack and I, walked around, eating grilled fish. I ate a dozen plates of excellent steamed buttered halibut, oversized plates. I could barely hold on to them. I could never do this on Earth. And I hope that tendency didn't follow me back when I go back. Everyone was dancing to their favorite music and watching for the boats to return. Once the boats came back and unloaded the thousands of pods of water, people crowded around to fill whatever containers they brought with them. It was the tradition to bring your own containers to collect the water. It depended on the size of your family. Some only brought a cup and drank the water as soon as they received it. Others brought large pitchers so they could carry water back to family members who could not attend. Any water not claimed at the fair was bottled and put in the supermarkets, so it was available to anyone who did not attend, but it only had a 2-week shelf life. When I went to drink the water, Jack prevented me, informing me I could not drink it because it would regenerate me in ways that could interfere with my return to Earth. We can't be shipping you back younger or livelier than when you left. It disheartened me. Oh well, was I going home? Again, Sierra felt more like my home. My life on Earth was fading from my memories. Except for the kids. And that didn't help because they came at least once a month on Friday evening, for Sabbath. I didn't observe it traditionally, but we still visited and ate a big dinner. After I discovered the stone hall, I invited the kids to stay over. They already knew about the room. So, from that point on, they slept on the beds and the grandchildren slept in sleeping bags on the floor around the fireplace. I enjoyed making popcorn and going up to build a fire, and spend the evening talking with the kids before everyone fell asleep. It was such a warm feeling to be with my children and grandchildren together. Sadly, I recognized I wasn't this character while on Earth. My circumstances were partially at fault, and I'd become so reclusive. Not anymore. I want to be involved with my children, and I demand this eternity. I arrived home late in the night, but I grabbed my writing materials to place it all down on paper before retiring.